And and so just from spending so much time on earth, I realized in the medical world, story is critical for healing. It just sees us through. And like I love
Mhm.
what you just said about we all have our own story and it's our
Yes.
own perception, you know. I also appreciate what you said, don't compare or don't even, just your journey is your journey, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what brought me to this juncture now in writing is because I realized the critical aspects of storytelling and how that really helps us, helps a person to heal whatever form you're
Mhm.
speaking of.
Salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our ongoing goal is to help you live your most audacious life ever. I'm thrilled to have you here with us today, and I appreciate you taking time to join us on our journey. We'll be talking about storytelling, and imagine storytelling as a key that unlocks the doors to our deepest emotions and experiences. Much like a master key that opens every lock, they enable us to see a whole new world. And as Dr. Nina Kelly shares with us her insights and experiences, she guides us to explore the power of storytelling in shaping our lives and healing our souls. Dr. Kelly is a remarkable storyteller herself and is a visionary who has dedicated her life to exploring the intersection of storytelling, compassion, and human connection. With a background in the medical profession and performing arts, she brings a unique perspective to the importance of storytelling and healing and personal growth. Now, in this episode, Dr. Kelly shares her wisdom on the significance of being audacious and courageous in pursuing our dreams. She emphasizes the importance of authenticity as well as vulnerability, which are both key when it comes to effective storytelling as a way to connect with others and make a positive impact on the world. So, without any further ado, let's turn to our conversation with Dr. Kelly. And greetings, Dr. Kelly. It is awesome to have you joining me here on the Audacious Living podcast. I appreciate you making the time like this.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here. So you're up in Toronto and I'm in
Yes.
North Carolina, so it's a great connection here.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. We spend much time on this podcast, encouraging individuals to have this, best audacious life that we talk about, and that pathway to get there is very individualized, and we all have our own way of getting there. It's our own individual path, and I think sometimes what happens is we'll look at where other people are at. We're not there. And we go, oh my gosh, and I'm behind, and we're not behind. We're right where we're supposed to be because it's our path, and so I think once more and more people recognize that, they're comfortable where they're at and they're able to move forward, not worried about I like to call them distractions because I think sometimes what they truly are. And
Right.
so having you on the podcast here, and again with all the work that you've done, and I know you use your books and healing through the art of storytelling. And I think storytelling is a wonderful thing, because of
Mhm.
the stories that we all have stories in our heads that we tell ourselves, and that certainly helps along that journey. So maybe as a starting point, Nina, I'd have you perhaps sort of talk a little bit about the work that you do and what brought you to the point that you're at now.
Well, it's a long journey. I'm certainly in a different phase of my life, and the majority of my professional life, well, it was split.
Mhm.
Majority of my professional life was working with in the medical profession, with death and dying, organ donation, transplantation, etc. And then the other side of that, my tithing, which I called it, was heavily involved in the arts, the performing arts. And so just from spending so much time on earth, I realized in the medical world, story is critical for healing. It just sees us through. And like I love
Mhm.
what you just said about we all have our own story and it's our
Yes.
own perception, you know. I also appreciate what you said, don't compare or don't even, just your journey is your journey, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I so what brought me to this juncture now in writing is because I realized the critical aspects of storytelling and how that really helps us, helps a person to heal whatever form you're
Mhm.
speaking of, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
I,
thank you.
I, the part about storytelling that I think is so critical
Yeah.
is where we see ourselves in that story, right?
Yes.
Because are we on the victor's end where things are going great, or do we see ourselves as that loser that nothing ever works the way we want it to? And that's
Mhm.
so important about in terms of our psyche, our own outlook on ourselves, and then how we
Mhm.
view the rest of the world. I would love to get your comments on that.
It's interesting because I think all of us have peaks and valleys.
Mm,
And and there's times when like because you appreciate basketball so much when you're really on your game.
yes,
And then the next morning you may wake up and you are not on your game. But
correct.
that's just as essential because it gives you an opportunity to reflect, to visualize. I was sharing with my grandchildren just this last week that I can look at the mountain out here and I will see one perspective. They can be looking at the same mountaintop and they're going to have a different perspective.
Yes.
And sometimes while you're climbing up to the top of the mountain, I'm going to use that symbolically,
Yep.
your vision may not be the same as your next door neighbors. And that's
Mm,
okay. You don't want it to be.
right.
The good Lord put us here and we're all so different. So it's critical that we appreciate where we are at the time we are, you know.
I wonder if you could talk about the significance of having varied experiences, because I do think the more of different types of experiences, perspectives. I'm a big fan of traveling, right? I love traveling because of the cultures and the viewpoints and the perspectives that we gain just
Mhm.
by being immersed somewhere else. And I think this so again, these opinions, viewpoints, perspective, however we're going to call them, they also can feed into our stories, can't they?
Oh, absolutely. And I love it that you like to travel. I'm a mythologist. My
Okay.
doctorate's in mythology, which basically means I have studied the majority of cultures, their rituals, their language, not the language so much, but the philosophies, the rituals. And by traveling, I think it's the greatest education on the planet.
Hmm.
What I have come to appreciate is when you go to a different person or different part of the world, or even to a different state, even or country, wherever you're going, oh, go with open eyes, go like a little child and eat their food, listen to their music, really appreciate the people. You'd be amazed how
Yes.
wise you come out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love that. I've been very, very fortunate to have studied with many different cultures. And it just you don't judge then. You go, wow, this is so great,
Yeah.
because you're learning something new. And it really, yeah, I say this every time and it gets kind of old, but it's so true. In New Orleans, we have a statement. It says, takes many ingredients to make a great gumbo. Well, the
Yes.
same thing with life. The more you can learn and grasp, the better human you become. Yeah,
Mm, mm.
yeah.
The word that almost instantly came to mind as you're describing these experiences that when we're talking about traveling and being in new cultures is the word compassion. I think if we can develop compassion
Mm,
for other individuals, you look at some of the challenges that are in today's society,
yeah,
and so many of these challenges, these roadblocks, these obstacles, these pitfalls that occur between individuals is because of that lack of compassion.
that's
And and compassion, I believe, is I also the word grace also I use that interchangeably. Um,
right.
it's
Right.
one of those things that you're not necessarily taught, but it's a learned thing.
It's a definite learned thing, and grace is, from my perspective, is critical.
Mhm.
Well, actually, one of the books I wrote was "Grace Has a Silent Voice."
Mm,
I think grace is on our doorstep every morning, and we're invited every day. I really appreciate that you said that because that touches me dearly.
mm,
Um, and it's so easy. We get comfortable. We get so comfortable and but that comfort sometimes puts you in a little box of thinking. So I love that's why I love your audacious, spirit here. And because that means you're pushing yourself. You're
right.
going, "Look, I need to see a different perspective." And that brings
Yeah.
compassion and that brings grace. Yeah.
It does. I think we're meant to stretch, right?
Hmm.
The comfort zone that we get comfortable in,
Right.
as comfortable that is, it's also can
Exactly.
be detrimental to our overall growth and development, right? And
Right.
it's just through those process of growing and developing and becoming better and learning and aging and getting wise through that process, the compassion, we understand better.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to have, my mother is still alive, and I've I've
That's
I've,
wonderful.
I've absolutely loved watching her age and watch her become just more compassionate. Very little ruffles her feathers, right? Like it's all, and I mean, part of it is, is very little that's happened that she hasn't already seen. I mean, that's part of it. You need to
That's
go,
called time on earth.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, you need to go through
Right.
things a couple times, like, oh, okay, we've seen this before. But I mean, but
Yeah.
even to watch just how she, the acceptance of things, right? And I think the compassion, the grace helps us to be able to do to do
Hmm.
that.
You're very blessed because you have an elder, a wise elder right there.
Hmm.
This is really,
Hmm.
really good. Um, I think, it seemed like I'm really clicking with you because my son the other day said, "Look, I don't want to upset you." And I said, "Oh, look, at this juncture in your life,
There's
the
nothing. You
only
got nothing.
the only thing that's going to upset me if somebody like my family member becomes very ill, or
Sure.
so other than that, it's all relative." You're right. And it's a gift because you don't realize it when you're younger, you're working and you're striving and blah, 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 and you're doing all this. And truthfully, at the end of the day, you're still going to get there. So I love, love, love the fact of compassion. Have
Hmm.
compassion for yourself,
Yep.
have compassion for others, and that just opens up your heart.
Yes,
Let's
it
just
does.
face it. And that doesn't mean you're always going to be jolly. Just
No,
you can
no,
be,
no, no, no. That's an entirely different thing. And I mean, and
yeah,
so I'm glad you touched on that, because I think sometimes the misconception is that you're always in a great mood or you're always happy, and
yeah,
that's not what it means. In fact, happiness. When you look at being sad and happy and angry and excited and anxious, what all those things are emotions. That's part of the human
yeah,
experience.
right.
So to say you're never happy means you're never angry or you're never sad, means
Yeah,
you're
it's not
denying
really
yourself,
wrong. Right,
right?
right. Yeah, that's almost like you're living on a superficial level here.
Yeah.
It would be
Mhm.
great. It would
Yes.
be
Yeah.
would really be good, but that's not real.
Right. This is it.
So think about the sun. When it comes up, it shines brightly, but when it goes down, it's dark at night,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of another analogy for life. You're not going to always be laughing and joking, and you're not going to always be sad. So
Yep.
you just gonna have to do the dance.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
rhythm of life,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Now,
love it.
I wonder if you could talk and maybe elaborate a bit deeper on. We talked off the top about stories, right, and how we
Yeah.
can use them, and we talked about using them to heal. Exactly, how do stories help us heal?
You know, I think when you're little, your
Hmm.
mother or your father or some elder, somebody is reading to you, telling you stories, and you as a child, oh, I'm going to take it like from that perspective. You as a child take in these stories and you see the world, and then all of a sudden you start creating your own stories, how
Right.
you see life. And I believe that stories are the most powerful thing on the planet
Mhm.
because it helps us to create our own story. It helps us to live a story, but it also helps us to have an imagination. And to me, creativity, imagination is critical. And it's through your stories that you can heal your own heart, or hero stories, hero stories say, okay, I can persevere through this because guess who did this. We're in desperate need of great role models these
Hmm.
days. I think we always
Hmm.
are.
Sure.
But I look at young people and I'm thinking they just need good role models. And guess how they learn? Through stories.
Stories.
There's the hero stories,
Mhm.
or there's the orphan story who comes out of the worst case and lives an incredible life. And circling back,
Right,
compassion,
right,
acceptance,
right.
yeah, helps
It's,
you to know who you are.
it certainly does, and I think as you think about stories, and I think I read somewhere you're a death doula, or you've worked with those, and uh,
Yeah, I did that, not now because
right.
of my time on Earth, but don't you like how I said that? My time on Earth, not gonna know age.
I love that.
You know, but yeah, I worked with I mean, a majority of my life was with at the bedside of people dying, you
Right,
know, and
right.
I'm telling you, it was the most, and guess what they all wanted to do at the end of the day? They wanted to share something that was important to them, whether it's to their family or to
Yes,
the caretaker.
yes,
And guess what? That's story.
yeah.
That's what kept them
That's
alive, their thread. And then I've seen people go from thinking they're going to die to living, and it all came through the power of keeping them alive through a story like, oh no, I have to live. This person needs me. I mean,
mm,
even if it's another motivation, you see what I'm, but it was a story, it was a thread. I've been so blessed, incredible. It's like you said about your mother, you see so much that you've seen good, bad, and in between,
mhm.
but it helps you to understand that everybody has to have something to hold on to,
Yes.
you know, and it's that story. I mean, it's since the beginning of time, before we ever wrote, people were telling oral traditions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and that's how they learn, and that's how they shared
Mhm.
information. That's
Right.
how cultures move forward, right? Through the art
Yeah.
of stories, and so I
Yeah.
think it's so important. Now, part of storytelling, you've had a lot of sort of experience sort of in the television field, right? Which is if you want to tell a story, that's a place to go, right?
Oh,
In the broadcasting world. Um,
right.
why don't you start talking about sort of how that's fed into your the work that you do?
Well, I'll use one example of a great uh the documentary was it's called A New Leash on Life Canine for Warriors.
Okay.
And this is where these were soldiers, obviously, that had served our country that
Hmm.
came home with post-traumatic syndrome. And and then there were dogs coming, shelter dogs that were taken out of a shelter,
Hmm.
trained with these soldiers.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
no one wants to come home whether they're injured, physically, psychologically, etc., anything, because there's
Right.
a part of your psyche, there's a part of us that, remember we talked about like, oh, we have to be always on our game. No,
Right.
you're not
Right.
always on your game. You're gonna have,
Right.
but when you saw the healing that transpired between these dogs that worked with these soldiers,
Hmm.
it was incredible how the
Mm,
dog with unconditional love was dedicated to their soldier, and then the transformation from that person who came back traumatized, all of a
right.
sudden their life starts all over again. That is a phenomenal story, you
Mm,
know and that happens where that's a huge case, but that happens independently all the time.
mhm.
It's like you have your smile, and I was thinking how contagious that is. I'm sure people must tell you all the time, great smile. Well, guess what? That your smile helps somebody else. It kind of lightens up the load, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it, it's so I've seen that. I've seen also, and that was one documentary, and the other was how the fallen soldiers, how there's a foundation called Foes of Honor, where their family members, because they made the ultimate sacrifice, they lost their life for our country, and so this Foes of Honor is a foundation that helps their families and their children continue on with their education. Beautiful stories. And when you see these kids say, you know, so sorry I lost my father or my mother, but guess what? I can continue on because of other people caring. Those are great stories.
Mm,
I'd like to say one more thing too.
yes.
Time of death, when I've seen this, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. Right before someone passes,
Hmm.
there's that light in their eyes, that
Mm,
light of life. It's like the it's like this. and yet it's a passing of a time. But you see that vibrance, that light in their eyes.
Mm.
If you can't tell a story from that, I don't know what you can, I don't know where you go from there. So
Well,
they leave with a story.
yeah, yeah. No, well, it's at that time, in sort of in those last hours where when you think about what's the most important, it comes through his story, like you said, in that moment.
Absolutely.
And it's they're not talking what they own, they're not talking about their possessions, they're not talking about all the things that they attained.
Yeah,
It's the things that matter, the people that matter, the relationships that made the difference to them, the people they loved. I think
right.
those are so when we talk about authentic, and so that's the real authentic stories that matter the most, right? Not the material
Absolutely.
stuff; it's everything else. And so,
Yeah.
as difficult as those periods are, obviously, death is death, and I mean, it's the mortality is what it is, and we understand that that's what our life is to be. As
Right.
difficult as it can be, there's also the ability to honor someone's passing in that way to sort of, I don't know if you want to guide them to that next stage.
Absolutely.
It's such a noble thing to be a part of. Obviously
Mhm.
not for everyone, I recognize that, but certainly you're honoring someone's life in that manner,
Right.
so, for
Right.
sure.
When I was a little younger, I bet I was 20, maybe I was 21. I was really young.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget this man by the name of Mr. Barnes. I had experienced death early in my life with my family. My mother died when I was 7, so I
Okay.
experienced death very early.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
but this man, I'll never forget. I had spent his last week of his life with him, and we got in a wheelchair and we're rolling him down the hall, and it was like he had the most vibrant last week of his life,
Mm,
knowing that he didn't make it that, past a week. But when you think about that, see, even to this day, I think about Mr. Barnes and I'm thinking, wow, he was so excited to get out of that bed. He was so excited to tell everybody in the hall hi, and get him back in. But to me, that's really the essence of life. It's
yeah.
like you said, things come, things go. Sometimes sometimes your money might be on up here, and other times it may be way down there,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
those are fleeting moments.
Yes. Yeah.
But life, it's the greatest gift, and sometimes because we have it, so we take it for granted. It's easy
Yes.
to take it for granted,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know. And
Absolutely.
I wish I could say that every day of my life I'm 100% focused on how the vital of life. No, sometimes I get caught in other things, you
That's
know.
yeah. Yep.
But
Yeah.
I've had enough experience in life that I know what's really
Sure.
vital.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And
Yeah.
also the ability to know when it's happening, right? I think
Oh yeah.
it's easier to detect when you've been distracted, right?
Mhm.
And how you sort of veer past and get to where you need to be. And so,
That's a
um,
great word,
yeah,
distracted.
yeah, no, I absolutely believe so. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's a great
Um,
word.
yeah. No, no, this is just so uplifting. When we talk about stories, I do thank you for that. Uh,
Mhm.
with it all that you've done, you've also written a book. Please talk about this.
Couple
My
of them.
goodness, where have you found the time? That's what I need to know. I'm actually even more honored that you found time to be on this podcast with me because you do so much, right? There's so much you're a
I'm a
part of.
fiery redhead. What can I say?
I love it. I
Thank
love it.
you. Oh, thank you. Well, I've written two different types of genres. One is nonfiction. It's called Grace Has a Silent Voice, and these are true stories that I wanted to honor the silent heroes. I
Mhm.
wrote it back in 2015, and I saw at the time when talk about death, at the time when someone lost the person they loved the most, believe it or not, their hearts were the most open. And you would think that they would be so self-consumed and
Yes.
grieving. They're grieving, but yet they were so compassionate. We're going to go back to your word compassion. They
Mm,
were so compassionate. So I really felt compelled to honor those people because they gave me a gift that you're doing your thing, but you don't realize. or maybe they don't realize the gift of life they're giving.
Gotcha.
And so I wrote about that. And then the other thing, just recently, I've written three children's books, and they've won the Mother's Choice Award and bestsellers and so forth. And so I'm excited about those because at this juncture, I'm thinking, okay, there again, I've gone from when my younger days, I really took care of the elderly,
Hmm.
and then, the medical world, and now here comes the children, and I realize how important the children are.
Yes.
So one book was called Honeybee Treehouse, and it's all about the importance of why we have to save bees, and these children
Mm,
get on the mission of saving bees.
I love it.
And then the other two books are Athena the Brave, and it's about the importance of words and kindness and how important words are and kindness.
Mm.
And then the next one is Athena Tudor and the Eagle, and it's about facing your fear, having the courage to go out there. So, and
Being
Athena,
audacious.
pardon me,
It's
it's
about being
audacious.
audacious.
You see, it was destined we were supposed to meet.
Absolutely. Love
Yeah,
it.
but that's kind of where that is. And so I'm kind of walking in two worlds because I still want to continue to do the children's books, but I also I'm creating a second edition of Grace Has a Silent Voice too.
Nice.
So doing that as well.
So remarkable, and it's tremendous that you're doing so much.
Thank you.
Um, let's talk about just this audacious for a moment here.
Okay.
I wonder from your perspective if you can maybe just tell our audience why is it important for individuals to be courageous and be audacious and take that step.
It's the first thing I think of. I'm gonna just tell you my first
Yeah.
my first impression is, you know what? It comes back to you. It's like, I can do this. Because you don't know until you try, right?
Hmm.
And you get out there and the first step you take and it's like, wow, I could do this. And the more so that's really, it takes guts, it takes courage to
Hmm.
do that. So I think it's imperative. And guess what? It comes back to you and then goes back to you with your smile. You have the courage to get out there and face that day, smile. And guess what? That's contagious. You spreading it. And I see people, I've been so fortunate. I've had so many elders and leaders that I've seen their spirit,
Hmm.
and I've learned, like, what the heck? Why shouldn't I try? Why not? What's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
You have a
Yeah.
hiccup,
Yeah.
you get up and do it. You know basketball. You get out
Yeah.
there and do it again.
That's
You know?
well, I think of so my youngest son, he's 18 now, but I vividly remember in that basketball, I'll give you a story, and he hates when I share this story because he's embarrassed every time, and he goes, "Why you tell people that story?" But I'm telling it anyways.
It's a
So
great story, Papa.
he was probably three, no, it was 6 or 7 years old, and they had this little league small ball program, right, where they had the kids play basketball. And basically, what it was is fathers and their sons kind of
Yeah, a
had
bonding
this
thing.
basketball program, but it taught them skills.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they did is they had a basketball net, but they had an extension, so it lowered it for the kids, and they
Mhm.
lined them all up to shoot like their two free throws.
Yeah.
And I remember my son, he took the first shot and he missed. And I was over on the side and he ran into my leg and gripped my leg and was just
Aw.
crying because he missed the shot. And I remember just saying, it's okay. You have another shot. Like that's not the only one. Like you can try again. Now
Right.
he went and tried again and he still missed. But the point is that there's always another opportunity, and it's funny because he continued to play basketball throughout and became a very, very, very good basketball player. And every single time we run into a period of adversity or challenge, I remind him when he was 7 years old and what would
That's
have happened if I let him quit because he missed the first shot, right?
right.
And
Yeah.
I think and there's a lesson in that just around why it's so important that we take that step, because by not taking that step, we have no idea what we're missing out on.
That's so true. It's interesting. I'm a visual person, so that I could see your whole story. I could see
Mhm.
him. And I was thinking, yeah, but you know what else he learned? He learned, oh, that didn't work. I'm gonna try a different way.
Yes, that's right.
See, so there's a learning from that too. And yeah, now look at him. Like you said, it's a great
Yeah.
because if you'd have said, oh, that's okay, you don't have to try. But I try to remind my grandchildren of this. You didn't come into the planet knowing everything.
No,
I
no,
mean, yeah, look,
no.
you have to learn how to feed yourself and walk and talk. What
Yes.
makes you think you're gonna be born as like, oh, I know everything? No, that's all
No,
part of the growth.
no. You can
It's-
take it you could even take it a step further. You have to learn how to swallow as a baby. You have to learn how to,
yeah,
like everything. Like that's how it
right,
starts. And
right.
and so you fast forward now. And so one of the things that my son does is he coaches younger kids.
Oh,
Well,
see,
come
oh,
on, right? So
that's
anyhow, so
wonderful.
that to me is
Yeah.
um there's such value in the trying, and I'm glad that you spoke to that. Now, I know
Yeah.
this has been great. I do want to ask you one last question. I want to go back to
Sure.
storytelling. For
Uh-huh.
those that have been listening to us chat and have enjoyed our conversation, I've certainly enjoyed the conversation. So
Well,
undoubtedly they
thank
have
you.
as well.
Mhm.
And they're thinking about the art of storytelling, or even the art of becoming a good storyteller. What one or
Mhm.
two things can you recommend that people do to sort of beef up that aspect and become a better storyteller?
Speak what you know about.
Uh,
See, and speak what means something to you because then you're having an authentic voice, you
mhm,
know? So the story you just told about your son,
mhm.
that's something so close to your heart. It's something very dear. And guess what? You tell a story. I was in the game. I could see him right there. So speak what you
Yes,
know about. Speak from the
yes,
heart. And when you're whether you want to be a storyteller or a writer or anything, write, everyone will tell you, write what you know,
right.
tell what and you're going to grow from there. And just from the exchange you and I had, I went, wow, you've stimulated me. You've brought
Mhm,
something to my attention. I went, yes, you know. So and never be afraid to share your story either.
mhm, mhm.
Don't be afraid of that,
Well,
you know.
and there's a piece of that which um uh uh where I believe people are probably most challenged when it comes to sharing those authentic stories that are real is being vulnerable, right? Because
Right.
you've got to sort of open up a bit of yourself,
Yeah.
and I think vulnerability is I think vulnerability is like a superpower, right? In terms of if you can, harness your ability to be vulnerable with others, the
Hmm.
manner in which you can make connections, the manner in which you can inspire or positive impact is raised like to this level. But you've got to
Yes.
be able to be comfortable doing that. And so that directly relates to storytelling. Like if you can be okay with being vulnerable, understanding that I need to tell this part of my story to be able
Hmm.
to make this connection. It'll well, first, it'll put your story to another level, right? In
Right.
terms of an impact, but it really
Right.
matters.
Yeah. And the other thing is, look, there's somebody waiting to hear. There's somebody you don't even know. Like the stories in my book, those people will never, well, they know if they read it, but they never realized what an impact they had on my life personally. And then back, I wanted to respect them and honor them. And who knows how many lives they've touched, you
Right.
know? And so it doesn't, I like what you said earlier in the sense of it's okay to have dark moments. It's okay to have light moments. It's okay to be bland.
Mm-hmm.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah.
But each part of that process, you really are helping somebody else. And so
Mm.
that's about the best gift you can give anyone, you
I,
know?
I I saw a quote recently, and it said, I hope I don't mess it up. Is um, my autobiography is someone else's blueprint, right? So
Wow.
what I've gone through and what I've experienced, including my downs. We can topple the ups on the top of the mountain and everything is great and fulfilled and
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
and all that stuff. But and those are great stories to share. But where people find the value is what you're doing down there, but then more importantly, how you got out of it, right? And so that's
Exactly.
where that blueprint piece comes in, where you now have given someone the helping hand out of their situation. Because I really believe in, people can challenge what I want, but there's no problem under the sun that already hasn't happened to someone else, and someone
Oh,
else has
yeah.
that answer.
Oh, sure.
So there we go.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like that too, because that's a great matter of fact. I'm gonna borrow that from you
It's
because
yours.
No, but it's like, how did you get out of that mud hole? How,
Yes.
because everybody kind of thinks, oh yeah, they're on their game, everything's good. No, wrong answer. They had to, had to get some dirt on their shoes too to get up there,
That's right. That's right.
I
That's right.
know.
That's
That's when you
right.
can laugh at yourself too.
Yes.
It's like,
Absolutely.
really?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great.
Nana, this has been such a delightful
Oh,
conversation. I'm
thank you.
so
Yeah.
glad that we made the time today. For
Yeah.
listeners that wanted to connect with you or learn more about your work, where can we send them?
Well, if you go on my website, it's
Mm-hmm.
ninamkelly.com, ninamkelly.com. And that's, you can reach me on all the different Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, all the 21st century things
Mm-hmm.
that they're doing
There you
these days,
go.
you know. So this has been a great pleasure. Thank you so
Yes.
much. I love your spirit. I
Thank
really
you.
do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Tell your
Thank you.
mother, thank you.
Thank you. This has
So
been
thank
such a delightful chat. Congratulations on all your work and all the best,
thank
Nana.
you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Back we are here on the podcast, and as you listen to Dr. Kelly's inspiring words, I encourage you to reach out to her directly through the contact details in the show notes. She was a delight to chat with and share insights, and I hope our listeners found value in the words that she offered. She brought forth a wealth of knowledge and experience that can truly transform your life. For those interested in delving deeper into Dr. Kelly's work, be sure to check out the special offers and products available on her website. At this time, I want to thank you for joining into the Audacious Living podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, certainly I'd ask you to like, follow, subscribe, and share with your friends to help our podcast grow and reach even more listeners, because your world means the support to us, and I want to thank you. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.